The massacre at Meridian Station. The emergency beacon from Meridian Station reached Earth 3 days after the massacre. By the time Ambassador Elena Rodriguez received the full report, the images had already burned themselves into her memory forever. 78 human souls, including 23 children, obliterated in the cold vacuum of space when Catherian warships opened fire on transport vessel Hope's Dawn. Elena stood before the mirror in her quarters aboard Diplomatic Station Alpha, adjusting her formal Earth uniform one final time. The fabric felt heavier today, weighted with the responsibility of representing not just her government, but every human family that would never see their loved ones again. At 52, she had negotiated trade agreements, territorial disputes, and cultural exchanges across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared her for this. The Galactic Assembly Hall buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 43 species took their designated positions. The massive chamber, carved from a single asteroid and reinforced with quantum fields, had witnessed countless debates over the centuries. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. General Thax entered with his usual swagger, his 4 arms gesturing dismissively as he spoke to his aide. The Catherian's exoskeleton gleamed under the assembly lights, each plate polished to military perfection. His compound eyes showed no emotion as he settled into the Catherian delegation section, his mandibles clicking in what Elena had learned was their equivalent of casual indifference. "The emergency session will now commence," announced Speaker Vorth, the ancient Solani whose crystalline form pulsed with soft blue light. "We gather to address the incident at Meridian Station involving human civilian transport and Catherian defense forces." Elena rose from her seat, her movement causing a ripple of attention throughout the chamber. She had requested to speak first, a privilege rarely granted to the human delegation given their relatively recent admission to the Galactic Council. "Honored delegates," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement systems. 3 days ago, 78 human beings were murdered in cold blood. I use that word deliberately. Murdered. Not killed in battle, not lost in an accident, but systematically targeted and destroyed while fleeing for their lives. She activated her holographic display, and the chamber fell silent as images filled the space above the assembly. The Hope's Dawn had been a civilian transport, clearly marked with refugee designation codes. The ship's manifest showed families, elderly colonists, and children evacuating from Meridian Station due to solar flare warnings. Among the dead, Elena continued, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, was Maria Santos, age 7, who had just learned to read and was carrying her favorite book about Earth animals. Thomas Chen, age 12, who dreamed of becoming an engineer like his mother and had built a model space station from recycled materials. Little Anna Kowalski, age 5, who collected drawings from her alien friends on Meridian Station because she wanted to show everyone back on Earth how beautiful the galaxy could be. General Thax's mandibles clicked impatiently. The human vessel was operating in restricted military space during active exercises. Our sensors detected unusual energy signatures consistent with weapon shipments. The captain ignored 3 separate warnings to submit to inspection. Elena turned to face him directly. "General Thax, would you care to explain how your advanced sensors mistook children's toys for weapons, or perhaps how a pregnant mother carrying her unborn child registered as military personnel?" "The fog of war creates unfortunate circumstances," Thax replied with practiced indifference. "Civilian casualties are regrettable but inevitable when protocols are not followed." The chamber erupted in whispered conversations as delegates processed the callousness of the statement. Elena waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "I would like the assembly to hear from one of the survivors," she announced. Captain Sarah Chen, who was piloting a rescue shuttle when the attack occurred, managed to record the final transmission from the Hope's Dawn. The holographic display shifted to show a woman in her 40s, her face bearing fresh scars from space debris. Captain Chen's voice, transmitted from her hospital bed on Earth, filled the chamber with haunting clarity. "The children were singing," she began, her voice breaking. They always sang during long flights to keep from being scared. That day, they were teaching each other songs from different worlds. Maria Santos was trying to teach the others a lullaby her grandmother used to sing, mixing English and Portuguese words. The Cytherian ships appeared without warning. Captain Rodriguez on the Hope's Dawn immediately activated all civilian identification signals and attempted to communicate. The recording played Captain Rodriguez's desperate pleas. Cytherian vessels, this is civilian transport Hope's Dawn. We are carrying evacuees from Meridian Station, including children and elderly. Please acknowledge. They never responded, Captain Chen continued. They just opened fire. The first volley disabled the engines. The second shattered the passenger compartments. I watched 78 human beings die in 15 seconds. The children stopped singing. Silence blanketed the assembly like a shroud. Even species known for their emotional detachment seemed affected by the testimony. Elena noticed several delegates refusing to look at General Thax, whose exoskeleton had shifted to a darker hue. The Tralexian delegate, Ambassador Zephyr, spoke first. This is deeply troubling. Perhaps the Galactic Assembly should consider establishing clearer protocols for civilian vessel identification during military exercises. Protocols, Elena repeated slowly, tasting the word like poison. Honored delegates, we are not discussing parking regulations or trade tariffs. We are discussing the systematic murder of children. And the response I hear is, protocols. She walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. I have served as Earth's ambassador for 12 years. In that time, I have watched this assembly debate for months over the proper classification of mineral rights while entire species suffered. I have seen lengthy deliberations over cultural sensitivity guidelines while injustice festered in forgotten corners of the galaxy. Her voice rose with controlled passion. But today, presented with the cold-blooded murder of children, this assembly's response is to form a committee to study protocols. General Thax rose from his position. The human shows typical emotional instability. This is precisely why Earth's membership in this assembly remains provisional. Your species lacks the discipline for true galactic citizenship. Elena smiled, and those delegates familiar with human expressions felt an inexplicable chill. General Thax, I want to thank you for that statement. It clarifies something that has been troubling me for quite some time. She activated her diplomatic credentials, causing her official seal to appear on every screen throughout the chamber and broadcast to every world in the Galactic Council. I am Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, representing the United Earth Government and all human colonies throughout known space. After witnessing this assembly's response to the massacre of our children, I have reached an unavoidable conclusion about humanity's place in this galactic community. The chamber held its collective breath. As of this moment, I am formally suspending all human participation in Galactic Assembly activities. All trade agreements, military cooperation pacts, and diplomatic treaties between Earth and Galactic Assembly members are hereby under review pending reassessment of their value to human interests. Chaos erupted as delegates began speaking simultaneously in dozens of languages and communication methods. Elena raised her voice above the din. Furthermore, I am declaring that any vessel, military or civilian, belonging to the Cytherian Defense Forces will be considered hostile and fired upon if detected within 50 light-years of any human settlement or ship. General Thax's exoskeleton flushed deep red with rage. You cannot be serious. Earth commands barely a dozen worlds and a handful of defense vessels. The Cytherian Defense Forces maintain 17 fleets across 47 star systems. Your entire species could be eliminated within a standard year. Elena nodded thoughtfully. You are absolutely correct about the disparity in our numbers, General. Humanity is indeed a young species, barely 4 centuries since we achieved interstellar flight. We control only 14 worlds and maintain what you correctly assess as a modest defensive fleet. She began walking toward the chamber exit, her voice carrying despite the continuing chaos. But you have made a fundamental error in your calculations, General Thax. You have confused quantity with capability. Elena paused at the massive doors leading from the chamber, turning back one final time to address the assembly. You see, humans are the species that looked at the most hostile planet in our solar system and decided to build cities there. We are the species that turned our deadliest diseases into vaccines and our most destructive weapons into tools for construction. We are the species that saw the infinite darkness between stars and called it home. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the vast chamber. Most importantly, General Thax, we are the species that has spent the last 12 years quietly studying every weapon, every defense, every weakness of every species in this assembly. We came to the galaxy seeking friends and partners, but we prepared for war from the very first day. Elena walked through the doors without looking back. Behind her, the Galactic Assembly sat in stunned silence, beginning to comprehend that the galaxy's youngest members had just declared their independence in the most decisive way possible. The human response. Within 6 hours of Ambassador Rodriguez's declaration, every human settlement across 14 worlds received the same coded transmission. Factory workers on Luna Base stopped their assembly lines. Miners on Kepler 442 bits emerged from deep shafts. Scientists on the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri paused their experiments. The message was simple. Protocol 7 is now active. Admiral James Morrison stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Olympus, watching as his communications board lit up with confirmation signals from across human space. At 63, Morrison had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come while ensuring humanity would be ready if it did. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Park from the tactical station. All fleet elements report ready status. The Catharian Defense Forces are mobilizing their 7th and 11th fleets. Initial estimates suggest they're deploying approximately 400 vessels. Morrison nodded grimly. And our response? Operation Damocles is proceeding on schedule, sir. Dr. Nakamura reports that all installations are online and awaiting your command. Across the galaxy, General Thax stood in the command center of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, studying tactical displays that showed human settlements scattered across their modest territory. His tactical officers had spent the last several hours analyzing human defensive capabilities, and their reports were encouraging. Supreme Commander, reported his aide, intelligence confirms the humans maintain only 37 combat vessels of significant capability. Their largest ship, the Dreadnought Indomitable, is barely half the size of our standard battlecruisers. Our fleet superiority is overwhelming. General Thax's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The humans have made an emotional decision that will result in their extinction. Prepare the fleets for total warfare. I want every human settlement reduced to debris within 48 standard hours. What General Thax and his officers did not know was that human intelligence had been monitoring Catharian communications for over a decade. Every tactical frequency, every command protocol, every strategic document had been intercepted, analyzed, and cataloged by a network of listening posts disguised as civilian research stations. Dr. Kenji Nakamura, Earth's chief technology specialist, stood in a bunker buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps, surrounded by the most advanced computer systems humanity had ever built. At 48, he had devoted his entire career to a single project that he prayed would never be needed. Admiral Morrison. He spoke into his communicator. Prometheus Array is fully operational. We have confirmed locks on all primary targets, awaiting your authorization. The Prometheus Array represented 12 years of human ingenuity and paranoia. While publicly pursuing peaceful scientific research, humanity's brightest minds had secretly developed what they called defensive deterrence technology. The principles were simple, but the execution had required breakthrough advances in quantum physics and exotic matter manipulation. Meanwhile, on Diplomatic Station Alpha, the emergency session of the Galactic Assembly had devolved into chaos. Species that had previously shown little interest in human affairs were suddenly demanding action. The economic implications of losing human trade partnerships were becoming clear as financial markets across the galaxy began fluctuating wildly. Ambassador Zephyr of the Trilaxians called for order. We must find a peaceful resolution. The humans provide crucial agricultural exports to 17 systems. Their medical research partnerships have prevented 3 potential pandemics in the last 5 years alone. The Androndan delegate, whose species had always been neutral in galactic politics, spoke with unusual urgency. Our asteroid mining operations depend entirely on human-designed extraction equipment. Without their technical support, productivity will drop by 70%. But the most disturbing reports were coming from intelligence services across the galaxy. The Altarian Security Bureau reported that human vessels had been detected in systems previously thought empty. The Centauran Defense Ministry admitted that several of their supposedly secure military installations had been visited by ships that matched no known configuration. General Facts dismissed these reports as fear-mongering. The humans are attempting psychological warfare to compensate for their military inadequacy. Proceed with the attack as planned. The first Cytherian fleet reached the outer boundary of the Alpha Centauri system exactly 47 hours after Elena Rodriguez's declaration. Admiral Corex commanded 87 vessels of various classes, confident that the small human colony on Proxima Centauri would surrender upon seeing his overwhelming force. Human vessels, this is Admiral Corex of the Cytherian Defense Forces. You will surrender immediately and submit to occupation. Any resistance will result in the total elimination of your colony. The response came from Captain Lisa Okafor aboard the human vessel Defiance, a destroyer that barely registered on Cytherian sensors. Admiral Corex, this is Captain Okafor. I have a message for you from the people of Earth. Proceed with your surrender terms, Corex replied dismissively. The message is simple, Admiral. You should not have touched our children. What happened next violated every known law of physics and changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The Defiance seemed to shimmer for a moment, then suddenly expanded into something impossible. Where a single destroyer had been, now floated a massive structure that dwarfed even the largest Cytherian battleships. Sir, called Corex's tactical officer, his voice trembling. The human vessel appears to have unfolded. It's now registering as a battle station with energy readings beyond our measurement capabilities. Similar scenes played out across 7 star systems as human vessels revealed their true nature. The ships the galaxy had dismissed as modest defensive craft were actually advanced platforms capable of rapid transformation. Years of human engineering had produced vessels that could reconfigure themselves into fortress-sized battle stations within minutes. But the true shock came when Dr. Nakamura activated the Prometheus array from his bunker on Earth. Across the galaxy, every major military installation, government center, and fleet command ship belonging to species that had supported or ignored the massacre at Meridian Station suddenly found themselves illuminated by targeting beams that had appeared from nowhere. The beams originated from what appeared to be empty space, but quantum analysis revealed the truth. Humanity had secretly constructed a network of cloaked platforms throughout the galaxy, each one equipped with weapons that could destroy entire planets. Admiral Morrison's voice broadcast on every communication frequency in known space. This is Admiral James Morrison of the Earth Defense Forces. For 12 years, humanity has prepared for this moment while hoping it would never come. We came to the galaxy seeking peace and partnership. We were met with condescension, exploitation, and finally, the murder of our children. The message continued as tactical officers across hundreds of species reported the same impossible readings. Every major military asset in the galaxy was being targeted by weapons that had apparently been in position for years without anyone detecting them. The Prometheus array currently has weapons locks on 417 primary military targets, 68 government centers, and 31 fleet command vessels. Each platform carries sufficient firepower to sterilize a planet. We have spent 12 years studying your weaknesses, mapping your defenses, and positioning ourselves for this moment. General Thax, aboard his flagship, watched in growing horror as his tactical displays showed his entire fleet being targeted by systems that registered power levels beyond imagination. However, Admiral Morrison continued, "Humanity does not seek conquest or revenge. We seek justice and respect." The terms are simple. General Thax and his entire command structure will surrender themselves for trial regarding the massacre at Meridian Station. The Catharian Defense Forces will pay reparations to the families of the victims. And the Galactic Assembly will formally recognize humanity's right to defend our people by any means necessary. The silence that followed was broken by General Thax's communication. "This is impossible. No species could have developed such capabilities in secret." Elena Rodriguez's voice joined the broadcast from Earth. "General Thax, you made the same mistake that many species have made when encountering humanity. You assumed that because we appeared peaceful, we were harmless. You confused our preference for diplomacy with weakness." Her tone hardened with conviction. "Humans are the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars before we ever reached the stars. We are the species that turned competition into cooperation and conflict into progress. Most importantly, we are the species that learns from every encounter, remembers every slight, and prepares for every possibility." Within 3 hours, General Thax and his command staff surrendered unconditionally. The Catharian government agreed to pay unprecedented reparations. Species across the galaxy began reassessing their relationships with humanity, recognizing that Earth's representatives had been far more than the naive newcomers they had appeared to be. The Galactic Assembly reconvened within a week, but the chamber was different now. The human delegation no longer sat in the junior members section. Elena Rodriguez took her place among the senior ambassadors, representing a species that had proven they belonged not through supplication, but through strength. As she looked out at the assembly, Elena thought of the children who had died on the Hope's dawn. Maria Santos would never read another book. Thomas Chen would never build his space station, and Anna Kowalski would never show her drawings to friends on Earth. But their deaths had not been in vain. They had awakened something in humanity that would ensure no human child would ever again die unavenged. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about Earth's children. They were protected by parents who would move stars to keep them safe. And now, everyone knew that humanity had the power to do exactly that. The age of humanity as galactic supplicants was over. The age of humanity as equals had begun.